Starting now with Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft. The way this is going to go, I'm going to read the first five or six picks at a time, and then we're going to touch on the notable picks in each one. Should be a good time here. Let me get to Mel Kiper's mock. All right, starting at number 1, Trevor Lawrence to the Jags. Then at number 2, Devante Smith of Alabama to the New York Jets. And at number 3, Jamar Chase to the Dolphins. 4, he has Zach Wilson of BYU to the Falcons. 5, Penei Sewell to the Cincinnati Bengals. And 6, Jalen Waddle of Alabama to the Eagles. I want to start with Devante Smith to the Jets with this. The only 2 analysts, big-time analysts, with Devante Smith as the best receiver in this class are Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, the 2 ESPN analysts. And Sam Monson. Sam Monson's the other guy. Me, you, the Draft Network, CBS Sports, Daniel Jeremiah, Steve Palazzolo. I'm sure there's some other notable analysts as well. All have Jamar Chase as the wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. ESPN hanging on, and Sam Monson as well. What is your opinion of him going as high as 2 to a quarterback-needy Jets team?
I have a take on this. This one's purely... Okay, I don't want to like insult Kiper, but this one's purely just like a hype machine, sort of like you have New York in a frenzy media market, and you have Devante Smith, Heisman winner, the biggest name right now in this draft, probably outside of Trevor Lawrence, like the most hype around it, and he just like kind of connected the dots here. It's not going to happen. I don't think he actually believes this is going to end up happening in real life, but it's kind of just like this is going to get the people talking if you go Devante Smith to the Jets right now.
Stephen A. Kiper.
That's kind of I don't want to say it. Kiper's a legend. I owe the fact that I'm probably here right now to Mel Kiper, but I think this one's kind of just like it's early in the process. Let's get a little
spicy.
Get some clicks. Let's get some eyeballs.
You also wanted to touch on Zach Wilson at 4 to the Atlanta Falcons.
That one's just because Kiper has a quarterback to the Falcons. DJ has a quarterback to the Falcons. This is interesting. I
had a quarterback to the Falcons in my first mock draft.
I haven't necessarily pegged them in that market. I thought they, as a kind of team, think they might be a little closer than that to competing and maybe not go quarterback. But if Zach Wilson's there near the Atlanta Falcons, I'm pulling that trigger 10 times out of 10. So
the fact that the Atlanta Falcons are getting mocked quarterback, who still have 2 years, I think, or even more on Matt Ryan's contract, and he's in a hard position to be traded. They're getting mocked quarterback more than the Jets are. Is absurd to me. Absolutely absurd to me.
Matt Ryan's 35. Like he's not.
No, I know.
And he doesn't. I don't think he's declined physically. He hasn't played as well as he did in a few years past, but their talent is also, their offensive line's diminished. Julio's going on the downside of his career. So
before I get to these next set of picks here, I got to bring this up. We thank everyone for the reviews you're leaving on Apple Podcasts. We're getting so many questions for the mailbag. So I sent like 20, 25 draft guides out yesterday, which was fantastic. To do that, if you haven't done it yet, leave a review on the Apple Podcast, 5-star review, and send me a screenshot of it in Twitter DMs. I have my messages open. I've sent out over 25 draft guides. I want to send out more. Let's see some more reviews come in. Also, if you just want to subscribe to PFF, Super Bowl 25 is the promo code. 25% off any PFF subscription. You can get the draft guide and all of its updates for the next 365 days for $30. $30, you get all of the updates and other things, fantasy football information, the quarterback annual, rankings, player grades, all that type of stuff from PFF for $30. It's a good time. All right, let's jump to these next 6 picks here. Detroit Lions, they grabbed Justin Fields of Ohio State. 8 has Carolina Panthers grabbing Trey Lance. 9, Denver Broncos, Micah Parsons of Penn State. At 10, the Dallas Cowboys grab Rashawn Slater of Northwestern. At 11, Kyle Pitts to the New York Giants, which I love. And then 12, you have Patrick Surtain of Alabama going to the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with Fields to the Lions. Matt Stafford will be traded probably, or definitely in the next 3 months. They're going a new quarterback. And Justin Fields at 7, if he does fall that far, and he's fallen in some mock drafts, some guys with close sources to the NFL, this is a sprint the card in situation. If the Detroit Lions are there at 7 and Fields is there, I think you have to do this.
The only thing I will say, and yes, I do think you go Justin Fields here if you are the Detroit Lions, is that the Detroit Lions, as it stands right now after the Matt Stafford trade, look like the favorites to get the number 1 pick in 2022. Like, that is just a depleted roster. You're going to start, and if it's Fields, you're starting a rookie quarterback. If you don't have Fields, you're starting, who knows, nobody. Like, you have really no one on that roster capable. Like, things could go south quickly there, and then maybe you're in Spencer Rattler territory, Sam Howell territory. If Justin Fields comes in not quite ready to adjust the NFL game, and then you're kind of maybe in that Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray situation where you have the number one pick, or I guess it would be Marcus Mariota would probably be a better comp. The Marcus Mariota Titan situation where you have the number one pick, and that's not a terrible place to be, but I'm just curious if they kind of say we're gonna eat it this year,
that would be nuts.
Just kind of bottom out, like hit reset. And if I'm at 7, maybe not address this quarterback. But if Justin Fields is there, I'm taking Justin Fields.
Yeah, okay. If the first 3 quarterbacks are off the board, and then maybe they're forcing a Trey Lance, knowing that they have a good chance to be a top 3 type of team.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you're that.
That makes sense. The rest of the picks here, I think, have been mocked a ton. Like Slater, the Cowboys I've seen, Parsons to Denver and Vic Fangio's system, Lance to Carolina. Let's move to the next 6 picks here. Los Angeles Chargers, Christian Darrisaw of Virginia Tech. The Minnesota Vikings at 14 get Elijah Vera Tucker of USC, the tackle that will likely play guard in the NFL. New England Patriots at 15 grab Mac Jones. We've seen that 1,000 times, but it's going to continue to be mocked. Arizona Cardinals grab Caleb Farley of Virginia Tech. The Raiders at 17 grab Jalen Phillips, the defensive end from Miami. We talked about him on the Monday podcast, talked about his concussions. That's where the concern is with Jalen Phillips. It's not the ability. It's the health concerns, the concussion concerns that have driven him down our board in our mock drafts. At 18, you have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of Notre Dame. Let's talk about Mac Jones to the Patriots at 15. What is your opinion of that being consistently mocked and now here in Mel Kiper's mock?
I can see it. Like this one, I can see in terms of everyone's like, oh, the next Brady. And kind of when you look at the quarterbacks they've drafted since Brady, because they've been one of the teams that they've been consistently trying to get that developmental guy, that quarterback of the future, whether it was Jimmy G or then Jacoby Brissett or then, the guy who couldn't even start this past year. His name slipped my mind.
Jarrett Stidham,
the Baylor transfer.
Quinn's a stud.
Yeah. Whereas they've been consistently trying to get that guy, but it's all kind of been in the Mac Jones-esque mold, shall we say. Not super athletic, not super arm talented, basically trying to find the next Tom Brady. But so I can see them falling in love with Mac Jones. This one, I think it could happen.
Rumor from the Senior Bowl, and I need to watch more of the quarterback film, is that Jamie Newman is looking like the best quarterback there.
We kept saying it going into this year at Georgia, like he's going to be the starter. There's no doubt in my mind. He's far more talented. The guy has an arm. He's built like a quarterback.
One of the best deep throwers in the game at Wake Forest. He was one of the best, highest graded deep passers in the game in 2019.
In terms of just arm talent, where the ball goes, where he wants it to go. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country in 2019. Now, that offense was a joke at Wake Forest. He was just throwing go balls. And
all vertical leads.
Yeah, just like not anything necessarily that's going to make you be like, oh, I can put this in an NFL offense. But like arm talent is still a good starting point, and it's a better starting point than a lot of quarterbacks have. So I'm not surprised that he'd look good against air. Want to see him more on the team sort of sessions.
All right, let's jump to the next 6 here.
The other interesting pick here is 17, Jalen Phillips. He's a more talented player than what they got in the top 5 in Cleveland Farrell. Like in terms of like
100%.
Physical ability, I would be floored. And he went 16th in DJ's mock. We'll get to that one. I'd be floored if he goes in the first round. I just can't fathom a team taking a chance on a guy in the first round who's retired from football already.
But I get it.
But yeah, I do too. I'm just saying, like, are you going to draft this guy and then have like a Chris Borland situation on your hands where it's like 1 year and then he's like,
honestly,
one very minor. It's one thing to have like a degenerative like knee issue or something, but this doesn't take much, and he might never play it.
I mean, I said this on the Monday podcast, and I'm working to get him on the pod. I think whether or not he goes in the first round is going to come down to medical checks and the interviews. Because like how this guy approaches this question about what happens when you get another concussion, is going to be it all. That's everything when it comes to his stock, because there's no one denying how talented this kid is. And if health was thrown out the window and he has never had a concussion in his life, we'd be talking about a top 10 player, I think. Like that's how good he is, in my opinion. All right, 19, we have the Washington football team grabbing Kadarius Toney, the Florida wide receiver, the jitterbug, if you will. At 20, you have the Chicago Bears taking Tevin Jenkins of Oklahoma State, a guy whose tape, you turn it on against Texas, against Joseph Ossai, and he is awesome. He is a guy that does not get beat in that game. He is really, really impressive. Indianapolis Colts grab Kwity Paye, our guy, friend of the pod, of Michigan at 21. Then Gregory Rousseau to the Tennessee Titans at 22. New York Jets grab South Carolina corner J.C. Horn. And at 24, this is a great fit. Zaven Collins, the Tulsa linebacker. He has him listed as linebacker, defensive end.
Yeah.
Going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I kind of like. You want him playing that role more than you do like a traditional off ball.
They'll drop their linebackers in Pittsburgh because they always like to stay in that 5-man front right up on the line. So I do like that fit too. The interesting one to me here, Kwity Paye all the way to 21. I just, compared to Rashawn Gary, Michigan edge defender, same school scouting here. Rashawn Gary went 12th. If you watch Kwity Paye's tape, Rashawn Gary's tape, like I get that Rashawn Gary was like a longer, more traditional edge build, but man, Paye is just better on the football field. In my opinion, a freakier athlete with freakier sort of edge skills. Rashawn Gary was just like a straight line explosive dude. I would just be floored if Kwity Paye follows all the way to 21. Someone's just going to fall in love with traits like that.
What's your opinion of Tevin Jenkins at 20 to the Bears? I think Tevin Jenkins, I wasn't putting him in that tier with Slater and Sewell, but I do think he's a very talented offensive tackle prospect. I don't know how much I'd like him in the first round though.
Yeah, in terms of just like, I feel really good about Penei Sewell being a very good offensive tackle. I feel very good about Rashawn Slater being a very good offensive lineman somewhere. He might end up at guard for whatever team he goes to. And then after that, I think there's a tier of Darrisaw and Jenkins where it's like those guys are physically dominant human beings. Powerful.
Mean too. Jenkins plays like an asshole.
Like they play like offensive tackles that you want, but you're just like, they didn't get tested as much as you'd like to see. Like he had some reps against Osai this past year, but he's also like, a lot of times they're getting 3-man rushes, RPO heavy offense. That was Virginia Tech as well, where it's like you didn't see them enough. And they're not like the most fleet of foot athletes. They're kind of big, burly dudes.
I agree.
But I still think that they're firmly top 25 sort of picks at the tackle position because of how that level of excellence is just gets you a big leg up.
Yeah. For Jenkins and Darrisaw, watch him against Quincy Roche of Miami. And for Tevin Jenkins, watch him against Joseph Osai of Texas, because I think those are the two best matchups you'll see for both those guys. Yeah. And I think when you're watching offensive linemen, and we peel back the curtain a little bit about the process, and you talk about this with different positions, but what I really like to do is watch full games against NFL competition for tackles. Yeah. Like go back and watch Alex Leatherwood versus Caleb on Chason the entire way. And
Cosme against Chason.
Or Cosme against Chason. You'll get a really good feel for how they handle NFL talent along the edge, and I think that's your best bet. End zone angle, ideally, but if you don't have access, broadcast, I guess, will work. But I do think that's what I do when I'm looking at offensive linemen. All right. Now down to the last 6 picks here. Jacksonville Jaguars, you have Christian Barmore of Alabama. 26, you have Aaron Robinson, the 30-inch armed UCF cornerback down there at the Senior Bowl, going to the Browns. 27, Baltimore Ravens grabbed Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver LSU. 28, Trayvon Moehrig, the safety of TCU, going to the Saints. Green Bay Packers grabbed Tyson Campbell of Georgia at 29. I don't read the last 3 here. Najee Harris, running back Alabama, going to Buffalo at 30. Joe Tryon, the defensive end for Washington, going to Tampa Bay at 31. And then Azeez Ojulari, who teased the next pod. I got Azeez Ojulari coming on, not this week, but next week.
Oh, yeah.
Should be on the podcast. But he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs at 32. Notable picks here, and where I want to start is Najee Harris going to the Bills at 30.
That one, all right, so Sean McDermott comes out, says we need to run the ball better next year. Yeah, they do. Like they were a bad run game. Najee Harris doesn't all of a sudden give you a good running. And you've drafted 2 running backs in the last 2 years in the first 3 rounds. You've invested in that position. Those are talented guys in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Where you sucked in the run game was your guards were getting their ass kicked. Mm-hmm. You were bad on the interior of the offensive line. Go address there if you want to improve the run game, because when you draft that guard, it has the added benefit of not getting your ass kicked by Chris Jones and knocking you out of the AFC Championship game.
John Feliciano was getting rocked.
Yes. So that's where I would start if I am saying we got to run the ball better.
That's a great spot for Elijah Vera Tucker if he falls to 30.
Yeah.
If they wanted to grab into your offensive line, I think
Wyatt Davis would make a ton of sense here. Like, I would go guard if I'm the Bills here, and that's my emphasis heading into 2022, 21. Jeez, my years are all off.
So something else I want to bring up is we don't have to talk about Aaron Robinson a ton more. I think we mentioned him enough. But what about Joe Tryon, the Washington defensive end, sneaking into the first round for Tampa Bay?
Man, so I wish he would have played this year. He was a guy who he had like a 72.0 pass rushing grade in 2019. That's just not, we're not going to put a guy like that in the first round. That's just not even close to productive against, I guess the Pac-12 tackles aren't too bad. Like the Pac-12 have some okay tackles, but they don't have, this isn't the SEC tackles you're going up against that left tackle. Like he's not, there was no real excuse for him to be that unproductive, shall we say. So he has the length, has the explosiveness, has the sort of plays the game you want on the edge. There's not like he's an aggressive football player. He attacks, but he just doesn't have any pass rushing moves at this point, and that's kind of.
Was he eligible for the Senior Bowl?
I'm not sure. I think he was a redshirt sophomore this year, so I don't think so.
That would have been nice to see him at the Senior Bowl. Yeah. All right, let's now jump to the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft, but before we do so, take a quick break. All right, Daniel Jeremiah kicks this thing off with Trevor Lawrence going to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1, Zach Wilson to the Jets at 2, not picking Devante Smith. At number 3, the Miami Dolphins take Jamar Chase, first receiver off the board. Falcons take Trey Lance at 4, not Justin Fields. Trey Lance at 4. At 5, he has Rashawn Slater to the Cincinnati Bengals, not Penei Sewell. And at 6, Devante Smith, the Alabama receiver, to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with...
Yeah, the top 3 felt a lot more... This felt a lot more like home. Like, yes. We were like, okay, thank God.
But at 4, Trey Lance over Zach Wilson. Or no, Trey Lance over Justin Fields.
That's when it got interesting.
Reaction to that?
I'm not surprised. DJ puts his sort of take on the guys when he's putting this in the. That's why we'll talk about the 5th pick, Cincinnati, after this. But he likes Trey Lance. Like we talked with him on the pod before the season about Trey Lance, if you'll recall, if you're a longtime listener. And he's really high on what he brings to the table physically. Now, has he played the game of football at an elite level yet? No. But you're the Atlanta Falcons. You got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's going to be there for the foreseeable future, like we kind of just talked about. This is your Jordan Love developmental guy behind Matt Ryan, hoping to catch the proverbial lightning in a bottle and get You're Mahomes, your version of Mahomes. Everyone's looking for that guy.
I tweeted something out probably a couple of weeks ago about Trey Lance and just his arm talent and how fantastic it is. And people are saying that Justin Fields has just as good of arm talent. No. It's not true. You are not watching the same game. Trey Lance has next level arm talent. I got ridiculed on this podcast for making the comparison of Michael Vick, but the only comparison is not a rushing ability or anything. The only comparison is that when you watched Michael Vick throw the football, the deep ball came out easy, flick of the wrist. And I think when you see it with Trey Lance, it is effortless, making awesome, strong throws down the field.
Yeah, our social team takes all our quotes out of context.
I got ripped, and maybe rightfully so. It didn't sound all that great in the quote tweet or the quote graphic, whatever it was. But I do think that like you turn on Trey Lance's film, and you cannot say that him and Fields are in the same tier from an arm talent perspective.
Correct.
Yes. And I think it's closer to what Vic
Justin
had.
Fields is the lowest of those top 4 quarterbacks,
but still good.
But still very good.
Yes, still good.
You're talking about 3 rare arms though in front of him. Mm-hmm. Lance probably has the strongest.
Yes.
Wilson the quickest like release.
Snappy.
And then I don't know, maybe Lawrence might have the strongest. He kind of just doesn't like turn it on. He just doesn't need to, but he can do whatever he wants with it. So you're talking about 3 guys though that would be stronger than anyone else in last year's class, like that are stronger than probably even like Drew Lock coming out a couple of years ago. Who's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, Drew Lock, just the arm talent, didn't like play football well. Like I think all those guys have better arm talent than Drew Lock even.
Wow. Yeah. So, let's talk Rashawn Slater over Penei Sewell to the Bengals.
Cincinnati burns to the ground if this happens. If Penei Sewell's on the board. They brought Penei Sewell signs to a game. I don't think I've ever seen that. For a non-quarterback. Yeah.
It wasn't a sign either. It was a full-length banner. I'll stitch it in, but it was a full-length banner that was hanging from
It's a Penei for your thoughts or something.
Yeah, Penei for your thoughts.
Which
you got to stitch that into the YouTube video. That's funny.
They will burn. Like the Cincinnati, they know their kind of fan base. They draft like Ohio State guys just because they know it'll get fans like excited. They're not gonna. They can't pass up Penei Sewell. They just can't. The city.
His reasoning here too, and I'm not knocking Daniel Jeremiah, is Slater has 5 position flexibility and his tape is outstanding. Yeah. The Bengals don't need a player with 5 position flexibility. They need a guy that can play tackle because their tackle play has been horrendous. And I think Penei Sewell is the best tackle in this class. But we say this 1,000 times. I've said it 1,000 times. Don't be overconfident in your evaluation, And I think taking Rashawn Slater here, if you I think he's the best guy, would be the Bengals being overconfident in their evaluation. It's like, hey, when you see the consensus has Penei Sewell as the number 1 tackle in this class, let's read the room here. Let's see. And if you think Rashawn Slater's the best, but on the consensus board across 100 analysts, he's more of a 10, in the 10 spot.
Yeah, when there's only
trade back.
When it's only you.
You have to trade back in that situation. If you're like, pretend the Bengals really liked Rashad Bateman here. We think Rashad Bateman's the best receiver in the class. It's like, okay, buddy. No one else does.
It's like when the Chiefs drafted Tyson Jackson third. When there's like everyone,
that's a good example.
He went from like mock drafts being like back in the first round, and then it's like, oh, he's the third overall pick. It's like if that's how your eval was, if you were that far off from every single other person is saying he's like a late first rounder, maybe it's you.
Or the Raiders with Damon Arnett, who had 30-inch arms and unideal athleticism. On the consensus board was in the 60s.
Well, Cleveland Farrell, like the Raiders.
Yeah, I do think that you can't be overconfident in your valuation and move back a bit. All right, jumping off this, Devante Smith to the Eagles at 6 is, I've said on this podcast before, that's the highest I'd take him. I like it at 6. You have here at 7, Justin Fields going to Detroit. You're going to see this a ton now that Matthew Stafford's getting traded away. Yep. Carolina, they grabbed Penei Sewell, the tackle from Oregon. And at 8, Denver Broncos grabbed Caleb Farley, cornerback of Virginia Tech. At 9, I love that fit. I would mock that all day long. I really like Farley to Vic Fangio.
I think that one happens. IRL.
And then you have 10. You have Patrick Surtain of Alabama going to the Cowboys. It's another one where it just makes a ton of sense.
2019 Bama secondary. That would be. I think those two, if we're talking about like picks outside of the top 5 that I think are very probable, I think those two are very probable because I don't think Carolina goes cornerback. I don't think Detroit goes cornerback. I don't think the Eagles go cornerback. I think those two will fall to the 9 and 10. And I think that's what they both need. At
11, Jalen Waddle, New York Giants. That's another pick I really like. And then at 12, you have Kyle Pitts going to the San Francisco 49ers. People were upset with DJ for this pick. Like, oh my God, we have George Kittle. I hate when people bring up players currently on your roster or draft need when you're drafting not a blue chip, but a top 5, top 10 talent at 12. I don't care if you have freaking Dick Butkus on your roster in his prime. Like, if you have an opportunity at 12.
What a player to bring up.
Dick Butkus would get sauced in this league. I get where you're going, but Dick Butkus would get absolutely murdered.
I should have said Antonio Gates or Tony Gonzalez or something. But regardless, this makes your football team objectively better than a lot of the players you could pick here that maybe are a bigger positional need.
Okay. And there's another thing about this. I will agree with that if it's, say, I don't know, positions where you can only have one on the field at a time. Running back, you have an elite running back. Why draft another running back in the first round? Like, you have a quarterback. You have Aaron Rodgers. Why are you going to draft another in his prime? Why are you going to draft another quarterback? Like, what's that doing for you? But you could put 2 tight ends in the field very easily, especially when they both run like 4.5s and can win one-on-one as wide receivers in their own right.
Exactly.
I mean, look back to when everyone caked their pants over the Gronk, Aaron Hernandez offense in New England when they had 2 tight ends and they did all this creative stuff with them. 2 tight ends with Kyle Shanahan with that level of athleticism is a nightmare for opposing defenses to have to deal with because you can run anything you want then at that point, and you can also get them both vertical in the passing game. One-on-one probably against linebackers with what the personnel you're going to have to match up those 2 tight end sets. Like, that would be a great pick if you're the San Francisco 49ers. That would be
his first sentence in his analysis is "Don't freak out, people."
Yeah.
The fact that people are freaking out of this is absurd to me. He lines it up: George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Like, that would be incredible. That is a monster offense. I said it when I first mocked Kyle Pitts at 10 to the Cowboys in one of my first mock drafts. I said there's not a single team in the NFL with enough weapons to pass on Kyle Pitts at 10 or after. And the San Francisco 49ers in that same exact group, even with George Kittle at tight end. I love that pick from Daniel Jeremiah.
And then also from a kind of just look around what's winning Super Bowls, what's doing the best in the modern NFL, unstoppable offenses, scoring as many points as humanly possible. What's going to get you an unstoppable offense? Kyle Pitts. Adding a guard here at 12, Elijah Vera Tucker isn't going to give you an unstoppable offense.
No.
Sadly. But that could give you an unstoppable offense when you have too many weapons and you could just lay up scoreboards.
I also really like Jalen Waddle at 11 to the Giants. They need a receiver. If Devante Smith and Jamar Chase are already off the board, Waddle at 11 is an easy pick for me. I really like that pick for Daniel Jones in that offense. At 13, he has Elijah Vera Tucker, the USC offensive tackle that will likely play guard, going to the Chargers. And then at 14, Greg Rousseau of the of Miami going to the Minnesota Vikings. I've seen that mocked probably more than I've seen your mom in the last week, which is saying a lot. At 15, I see Micah Parsons, the Penn State linebacker, going to the New England Patriots. That's the lowest I've seen him mocked.
That one's wild, yeah.
That one's wild. 16, Jalen Phillips, the Miami, Florida edge rusher, going to the Arizona Cardinals. And then at 17, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And at 18, Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech offensive tackle, going to the Miami Dolphins. Let's go ahead and start with Micah Parsons going to the Patriots at 15.
That one's just, I can't see him falling that far. Although he does have off-field issues that kind of have not been necessarily reported on a ton. He was involved in that, or named in that bullying scandal that happened like a year ago. Could be a thing that comes up. Obviously didn't play football this past year. And linebacker is not the most, shall we say, like valuable position like that. Although we have seen, I think, 3 guys drafted in the top 10 in the past 2 years at linebacker. So some teams value it highly. I think the Patriots would value it highly, and he would be a great fit for their scheme. I don't think he makes it there. I'll just say it.
That's what I think. That's what I think this is. You know, when you're building a mock draft for a website or whatever, and you want to force a fit, and you got to have like Micah Parsons, the best fit for him in the NFL is the New England Patriots.
Yes.
And like when you kind of want to force it, you move some things around. Like, yeah, he fell to 15. Like I kind of respect it from DJ here. If he does fall that far, I do think the Patriots sprint it in. Let's also talk Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker for Notre Dame, going to the Raiders. I've mocked it. You've mocked it. Everyone's seen that one so far. But what about
needs to be done?
We talked about Jalen Phillips with the last mock here.
I think Elijah Vera-Tucker going all the way up at 13 to me is interesting. If I'm the Chargers, you have needs at everywhere along the offensive line. You could use everything. I think Elijah Vera-Tucker, his tape this past year at tackle was very good. But I think he is a guard. You saw that when he went up against Kayvon Thibodeau in the Pac-12 championship game. A guy with length just exposed him. Kayvon Thibodeau's going to be awesome. But so no real shame in that, but he got beat up. I would rather have a guy who you know can play tackle. I would rather have here, if I'm 13, the Chargers, I'd rather have Christian Darrisaw. You know is like has the physical tools to stay at tackle in the NFL, has played elite football as well. So that's just my take. If you're 13th, like you can get a guard later. You might not get a guard in the second, third round. Like it is deep tackle class, but I would rather go tackle here if I'm the Chargers.
All right, 19, wide receiver Kadarius Toney going to the Washington football team. Pair up with Terry McLaurin, hopefully a new quarterback as well. At 20, Jalen Mayfield, the Michigan offensive tackle, going to the Bears. 21, projected trade. The Detroit Lions, I think, or the Indianapolis Colts trade back. Detroit Lions trade up, grab Kwity Paye of Michigan there at 21. At 22, J.C. Horn to the Tennessee Titans, the outside corner from South Carolina. And then you have the New York Jets at 23, grabbing Travis Etienne of Clemson. At 24, Tevin Jenkins, Oklahoma State offensive tackle, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's your opinion of the Lions trading back up to go get Kwity Paye?
I wouldn't hate it. They need edge. I mean, that's been kind of their death knell now. What's his face? Romeo Okwara actually played better this year. And I think you do the projected trade up with the Colts just because the Colts always trade down. Like it'd be unrealistic to do a first-round mock draft with the Colts staying where they are and not trading down. So I think that's why he did it. I guess he hasn't been the Matt Stafford trade going.
Okay.
Sorry. That's what it is. But also still. I think, but again, Kwity Paye to 21. I just think that's low. I think he's got to go higher.
Fair. Okay, so that makes way more sense. The Indianapolis Colts trade for Matthew Stafford, who is like the favorite landing spot right now. And then Detroit Lions get Kwity Paye at 21. That'd be awesome. If they get Justin Fields at 7 and Kwity Paye at 21, that's a decent first round for the Detroit Lions. I also really like the J.C. Horn pick to the Tennessee Titans. Can't really get on board with the Jets grabbing Travis Etienne in the first round. As much as I love the guy, you know, we've talked about running backs in the first round a ton.
Dude, that would be... They just learned their lesson with this.
Bell.
You just learned your lesson about, hey, putting a blue chip running back, even though maybe he wasn't a blue chip running back anymore after the year off. Blue chip running back behind a dog poop offensive line. It turns that blue chip just gets covered in dog poop. It doesn't matter. Like you can't. There's so few, maybe none in the NFL nowadays that can actually overcome bad offensive line. Just can't. It's the guys on the other side of the ball are too athletic to when they are free and not being blocked to avoid them. consistently.
And your production is way more dependent on other factors at that position. Like that's the thing we always bang the table about. It's like box count and offensive line strength are way more predictive of running back performance than the actual running back you have. And to spend high resources at the position like they did with Le'Veon Bell, and in this situation with a first-round pick, it's just, I think, again, a little bit concerning. All right, let's read the last few picks here.
I want to touch on one, the Kadarius Toney one, going 19 to Washington football team.
I think Kiper had that as well.
Someone asked me where's like his high. I could see him going all the way up to 16 in Arizona. Would not be crazy to me if Arizona won Kadarius Toney because of, that offense, playmakers. Kingsbury just, he needs help.
That's his last straw,
This
by
is
the way.
what he needs. I can see him going as high as 16. I don't think he slips out of the first round. I think 32, Kansas City, they'd love to have him. Like they are a similar team where they're not going to pass on a level of playmaking ability like that with what they can sort of scheme him in that offense. So I think that's his range, in my opinion. 16 and 32 is where I see him going.
If Cliff Kingsbury...
Barring gas mask bongs, obviously. Always the caveat.
I think there is some off-field stuff with Kadarius Toney. I remember talking to somebody about that. Yeah. I don't know. It's still being rumored.
Gas mask bong related?
It's not gas mask bong related. But if Cliff Kingsbury gets Kadarius Toney at 16 and that offense still ranks outside the top 15 in EPA per play next year, as it has since he's gotten there, I'm going to be pissed.
Love the EPA per play talk, baby.
You want it a little later? All right. 25, Jacksonville Jaguars grab Trayvon Moehrig, the safety from TCU. I like that your guy is getting into the back end of first rounds for Kiper and McShay. No, Kiper and
the TCU duo.
Then you have Cleveland taking Zaven Collins, the Tulsa linebacker, at 26. Azeez Ojulari, a soon-to-be friend of the podcast, at 27, going to the Baltimore Ravens. Nick Bolton, Missouri linebacker, a guy I really like in this class, at 28 to the New Orleans Saints. This one's wild. Tutu Atwell, Louisville wide receiver, really small, kind of gadget type, going to the Green Bay Packers at 29. Then he has Aaron Robinson at the back end of his first round, just like Kiper does. The UCF corner going to the Buffalo Bills. And 31-32, it's Joe Tryon, Washington edge defender, to Tampa Bay. And then Levi Onwuzurike, your guy, Washington, going to the Kansas City Chiefs at 32.
I like that pick. The one, though, we have to. Me, obviously, as a Packers fan. Tutu, obviously, as a 5'9", 165-pound first-round pick at wide receiver. I would be less than enthused. I want a wide receiver here. Don't get me wrong. If they pass on wide receiver, I'll cry that night. But Tutu Atwell in the first round is insane to me.
There are so many other receivers at this spot I'd rather have. Rashad Bateman of Minnesota. And I'm not even all that high on Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
I would have rather had Chris Olave, but obviously he's going back to school. Then you have Rondale Moore. And then also the other guy I'll mention is Elijah Moore from Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Like those are three guys that I think I'd rather have over Tutu Atwell here at 29, despite I get that Tutu Atwell is fast.
That is the one thing, in my opinion, Tutu Atwell does better than Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore. Speed.
Straight
He
line.
is faster than them. I'd say any single other thing about the wide receiver position, I'd rather have Rondale Moore or Elijah Moore at.
I think
if you want that type of wide receiver in your offense. And they are both, in their own right, likely 4-3 wide receivers. Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore.
Yes. I think
that is the type of
4-3s.
speed that they play with. Maybe just not 4.29, 4.3 flat, which we've seen how well guys like Tutu Atwell translate to the NFL when they're just like the Tavon Austins of the world, the
John Ross
of the world. But I was
Quinn is just.
I was gonna say, who was the guy who was like the Kent State wide receiver who was Dree Archers of the world?
Oh yeah, I forgot about Dree Archer.
Yeah,
he went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I remember. Goddamn, this actually was good when Mike Florio mocked Dree Archer in the first round.
Oh man,
remember that?
I don't remember that.
I think he got roasted because everyone's like, "Dude, you're just like you just saw the combine," because it was right after the combine.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, you gotta do it for the clicks.